Welcome back to part 2 of the stock dashboard video. In this video here, I'm going to show you how to do the front end and the React aspect. I'm going to show you how to display stock information with a charting library. I just want to say where we are at. If you haven't watched the other video, I recommend watching it. If you look at my screen, you'll see that we have this endpoint and it returns our stock information. It was all relatively simple. Everything's actually already set up. Most of the setup actually happens in that video, so also check that out. But you kind of need that video to watch this all. And if you're wondering whether can you just make the request directly from the front end to the charting to the stock API, the reason why you cannot is because if you do that, if you put your API key on the front end, then it's a security issue, because I can, not just me, anyone with an internet browser who uses your application may notice that your API key is sitting there and they can see this information. So don't do that. You have to use a backend. Unfortunately, it makes things a little more complicated, but this actually helps because it allows you to work with users and things like that as well. And so I'm making a couple of assumptions, and I mentioned in the last video that I'm assuming you've set up users, you're handling users. I'm not doing it. I'm just, so I'm going to switch to the code. Literally, I just pretend that like you do user lookup and you retrieve the tickers that they own in their portfolio, and this loops through and grabs those tickers and grabs the stock information related to those tickers. And so that's all handled. This is all set up. So I'm actually going to close this. I know if I do a post request to this endpoint, I get my stock information. So with that, I'm going to close Postman. Yeah. You know what? Actually, I'm going to copy temporarily just so I can keep the response. I'm going to copy this, and now I'm going to close Postman. I'll post this just in a file somewhere, response.md, and just so I can have it and I can see it and work with it. So we can close server now that's all set up, and we're going to switch over to client again, assuming you have your users and stuff. I'm just going to rename a couple of these things because I prefer to call these containers, and I butchered the spelling on that. Containers, and we're actually going to clean up a few things up. So app is nothing. It just we're going to get rid of the header and the footer. And so with that, you can delete them there, and you can delete the footer and the header, and you can get rid of hello world here. Actually, don't get rid of hello world. All of this is great, but we're going to change it around a little bit. We will keep, I think there's one post request. It's new. That's a put, that's a put. This is a post, new counter is post. Keep this one call. Comment set. We're going to write this as a pure function because our home is a little simpler. So this will be, and we don't need any props or anything like that because, well, in this example we don't need any props because our application is fairly simple, and all we're going to have is view profile. I'm just going to do this so that everything sits in like a different file. I'm going to delete hello world here, and I'm going to have profile. And this will be, I'm creating a profile.js, and in there I'm going to import React from React, and I'm actually going to import component as well because I'm going to write, since there's a fetch call in here, it's going to be not written as a pure function again, so this will be called profile, extends component. We need a constructor at some point, and it's going to pass in the props and pass it to its parent. We'll have a state, and the first thing is the page has to load all of its actual like stock information, so we'll have is loading. And the last thing we'll have is render, and this will just return for now a div that says profile with the text profile in it. Last step is to export the default and our name. Okay, so that seems set up. This never actually gets used anywhere. If you're using an ESLint, you'll get a lot of errors here. And so I'm just going to switch over to my index.js here. Hello world doesn't exist anymore, so this will actually fail, but we can change this to be profile, change this to be profile, change this to be profile, change this to be containers, change this to be containers, change this to be containers, and this. Just my reasoning for changing the names to be containers compared to components, I find that containers are like your page, and then components are like the individual aspects inside of it. So, you know, I don't know how many web pages, but essentially like this area on the page is a component inside the overall container, and that's like how I think about it. And you should put a lot of your requests and stuff on containers, because you don't want to duplicate requests and stuff. You should pass them down as well. If you're using Redux, it's a whole different thing, but if it's a small application, you want to pass things down from the container down to the component, so you don't do it would be bad if you had one component make a request and then another component on the exact same page make a request, and that's two requests that you could have done for one. Anyways, so we're gonna just change this path to be profile, and change this to load the profile component container or whatever. And with all that, we should just run it to verify it still works. It's been recompiling, and it doesn't look like it's had any issues. So this all sits on port 8080, so localhost 8080. As you can see, we have view profile, and it has a dead link on it, so we have to change that. So go to home, and then change this to be profile, save, and it's now changed to blue because haven't been there. So hit that, so we're on localhost 8080/profile, and so that's all set up. Now it's time to actually do some of the, we'll make the API call just so we can see it on the front end, and then after that we will begin to add the ticker and the current price, and then from there we'll add the whole charting library and get into that. So I asked you to copy the post call. If not, you can just copy mine, and we'll do this. And so what this is a function call that fetches information about my the stock portfolio for this user. And so API/stock/portfolio. It's a post request. This is why, don't worry about it actually. We got a JSON response, and we've seen the response. It is, where did I put that? Put it down here, response.md. So the first thing we want to do is say, so I always try to put a success in a message, so if something goes wrong, there's an error thrown in success. So with that, I'm going to say, okay, if json.success, which is, since it's a boolean, you can write it like this. If it's successful, it's going to go into there. If not, it's going to go into here. And is loading will be done. That's right now. This should be set to true. And we'll say error, and I'll just put the message in there from the JSON. I'm going to write it like that. And so with this, I'm going to need error and state. And I'm going to change the render to do the following. So this is shorthand. I've explained this before, but I will again. This would be the same as writing, let's just say for one. I find it's cleaner to write it the other way. And so if the page is loading, you can put a loading bar or something, but I'm just going to do a return, and I'm just going to return the text saying is loading, or loading. And if there's an error, it's kind of a groundbreaking thing, because there's only one call, but you can handle errors in different ways if you want to. But since if there's an error, so it's not null, I want to print out the error. And I don't know here. We'll just do some inline styling here. We'll change the background color to be red. Actually, let's grab an actual color. So I'm just going to jump to the internet browser. I use this website here. I'm going to grab a dark red, which is this color code. Just paste that in there. And then I'm going to do inline styling here to say, okay, I'm going to make the color white, which is FFF, and I'm going to add, okay, that's good enough, don't have to get too much into it. I don't think there'll be an error. I say that, but we don't handle errors on the back end right now, but you should be. And so this will return our response, which looks like this. And so in results, we have our stock information. Well, the first thing we want is the metadata. We want to know the symbol, and so and since that's unique, there's only one of those. We'll actually put into state, and we'll leave it blank. And so with that, we'll say, okay, this dot set state is loading as false, and we want. Sorry, I'm closing that. We have to go. That's JSON dot. Because of the way the API library does their things, everything has spaces in it, so you have to do it in this notation. And the last one is we want symbol. Now you can just make this an object and then reference it all, but it wouldn't be bad actually. But I'm just gonna put everything into state. And so the other thing I want is last refreshed. You know what? I'm gonna grab a couple of these things. So last refreshed and time zone. Those are the three things I care about. I'm just gonna copy this because and switch back to my response. I'm just switching between the two, copying and pasting, just to not make any typo errors. Time zone, and let's say that those all work. We now want to actually grab that information, so symbol, time zone, and what was the last one? Last refreshed. And if I just put that all into an object, I would have to do some error checking, because essentially these are going to be undefined when it's loading, but that's fine because it's going to return here. It doesn't return here. I want to this is one ticker, right? Because this is an array. Oh, that may actually screw it up. This is an array. That will screw it up. So this is supposed to be at 0, at position 0. Okay, you know what? I'll do it the other way. So leave it like this, results, and the state here will be results. And change this to be results. Okay, so we have results, and with results, we're going to load each of the result with component. And so we'll do these so we can reference our results. And we'll say map, and R will be a single result. And we don't actually need the brackets there. Result, and we'll pass that to a component that loads results for a stock. And we'll call the prop data, and we'll pass in result. So I'm not going too much into how React works, but we'll actually have to create this. So this will be our components folder. So we have to create that, and then in there we'll create a profile, and in there we'll create stockinfo.js, and we'll import React from, and we'll import no, we don't actually need to import component, I don't think. So from React, and then, because I know that there might be information, this time we're going to pass in props because we have data in the props. We're just going to return this for now. Export default this, and the last thing we have to do is actually import this here. It's back one folder. Let's close something. Back one folder, back two folders. Components. Slash profile slash stock info. And so now this should load. All are based on every single result we have. And what the last thing I'll do is I'll do there's no validation on this, but we don't have ESLint, so props dot data. I'll show you what props dot data looks like. And with all this, we should refresh our page. So it still says is loading. What we can do here is check our network calls. I just did a right click and went to inspect. Check your network calls to see the status of how looking at our profile. I just want to verify that we're actually stopping the is loading. Is loading and set the false if JSON response is true. I'm just going to hit refresh so I can see all the calls going in. Excuse me. So here, 304. No. That's our page. You know what the issue is? We're never actually calling the fetch. This doesn't get called anywhere, right? So the first thing we want to do is bind this to the component, or I guess the container. And you typically put calls in the component will mount or the component did mount. And so now we just do this. And to prove that the call is going out, we can do and it's building, it recompiled. Profile. Cannot post API slash stock. Okay, let's check our stock to port. What did I make the API call? Profile. Typo there. So we gotta change it to be portfolio. And we'll do the recompile. This call is pending. Oh, and there we got the response is here. So we get results, and in there we have metadata and so on, and it loads our component. So now what we have to do is take this information. So we want to go to our console, and as you can see, props.data, it receives the data for only one result. And so with that, we're going to do the following. Go to our stock info and display this information in a better way. So don't hit save because it's a hot recompile, so you'll lose all of this information. So props.data. Actually, I'm gonna do this. Data. Just to follow, I really like this notation. Inside of data, we want. These spaces kill me. Can't do this notation. But essentially we want the ticker, which is data at metadata there. I have it in response, so I'm just going to work off the response one. Data at metadata. I'm going to close portfolio there. I'm going to close stock.js. Metadata, and then the last aspect is I want the actual symbol. So I got the ticker. And the other two things I wanted was last refreshed and time zone. Time zone. Now we're just going to display all these three in information and general information, and we'll put a line break in there just to give some space. And I'm going to hit save, and the page should refresh. I'll just actually do a refresh. And the reason why we have the loading is so that you can see that it takes some time to reload. Time zone did not work by the looks of it. Okay, here's the issue. Time zone didn't work because I copied way too much. Save that, and then we'll refresh again. But as you can see, Microsoft's coming in, which is our one result. Now it's time to actually show the data, and this would be our charting library. So I have it open here. It's called Recharts. You'll have to do an install with it. They have a couple of examples on their website. First, I'm going to do this one, though. npm install. You'll have to stop this. Do an npm install -- save of Recharts. And I'm just going to switch over to their website here, recharts.org. Guide. Let's go with the examples. I just want a line chart. A simple line chart worked great. Where our data is okay, I'm just going to copy all of this. This is just coming from their website. And so I've actually used this library before. If you go through it, you can see that each aspect has a number of things. So you can go and break down the x-axis and customize and stuff. And get into, so essentially, what I want is, I'm trying to look at my response here. I have God, it doesn't help that these are objects. It's like this is an object within an object. It's not an array. Okay, so what we'll have to do is we're going to have to process this in a nicer looking way. But with that, we'll go through and process the everything by a day. So we'll have 3 different lines. We'll have one line for open, one line for high, one line for low, one line for close, and one line for... I'm not going to do volume because that number is incredibly different than the other ones. And then, so essentially this will become, instead it'll be like an array element, and then so instead of it being sorted by date, it'll be sorted by it'll just be an array element. To kind of explain, this will be changed to date. Data isn't existing yet. One line here would be open. The other line is high. I got a bunch of colors here too. Low and close. I'm just going to switch to my HTML colors page just to grab a couple different colors. Like one this color. I'll make one this color. And so for now, we'll just make data empty. And so it loads, and then we'll need this naming. We'll call it rows or something like that. Just because the naming's a little off, because data already exists. And what we'll do is actually print it, the data that we're passing in. And so we have to restart our React. So just do an npm run start dev. And I'm going to switch back to my actual page here. I just want to see what the, I guess I know the structure of it, eh? So that we don't need, like, I know it looks like this. So we'll just have to do a loop. We just have to loop through an object. We'll do this actually. I just looked up loop through an object. I know this isn't the nicest way to do it, but essentially we'll do it this way. And so call this time series, and it's data time series daily, and each one here. So time series, and then we have the key, which is the date. And time series has, you know what, we know that the key is the day, so I'll just put that in the comments. And if time series has value, what would value be? Oh, this is looping through an object like that. Value would be another object. I'm just call this financial data. So this would be this stuff here, right here. So it'd be like this. And so with that, I need to go get open. So I do that with this fin data at open. I really don't like how they have spaces in their response. This is high, so this is number 2. Low, fin data at low, and close. I will just include volume. It won't be used anywhere, but and with all that, we're going to create our rows element and do a push. I know this is a little crazy because you'd have to loop through anytime you would reload the component, you'd have to refresh the rows. I almost recommend handling this in the container. Kind of why it's there, but so date is key. Open, I believe all these names don't change now. Open, high, low, close. So you can just write it like this. And I would push, and I just want to print out rows so I can see it. Rows. And the last thing we did not do is actually import the proper elements for the React charting library. So if you scroll to the top, they want to do this. Read charts. Alright. Try this again. It should reload, I think. See, line chart's not defined. Okay, rows came in empty. I don't think our looping thing worked. So I'm just gonna add some console logs to see what's going on. Okay, I added some console logs. It looks like, so this all exists, but we still get no rows. What I also added was this here. So this looping doesn't really. Let's try removing the options. I don't think that's actually a thing. I think if you just do it like this, it works. Refresh that. I kind of recommend using something like Lodash. It's kind of a one of the most popular libraries out there. Cannot read 0 to undefined. Why don't you do this? So if it exists, then so I just want to see what the line. Oh, yeah, that was the line that was the issue. So it's gonna refresh now. Probably get a bunch of here 001 or whatever. 100 of them to be exact. And the good news is I see data. Don't think it completely worked. Let me just take a look at my graph here, why this is height. Yeah, okay. High, low, legend, tooltip. This is the grid. Remove that. So I'm just going to take a look at this example that we were working off. Maybe it's because it doesn't work with a string there. Like the like it accepts this as a string element, but it doesn't actually work when this is a string. String to double JavaScript. The parse float function. Parse float. And we'll use just holding down command to multi-click here. Parse float. That didn't totally work out there on this last one. I'll just do a refresh. Yeah, I'm assuming it's because it's a string, but it was. And I should really get rid of the dots because that looks bad. Grid I like. The legend, not bad. Stroke is fine. So here, let me give you an example why I'm kind of showing this. Because if you go to API, they have a whole bunch of grids. And look at the line chart here, or I can just look at each aspect of it. And so here, line dot is a boolean, and by default it's true. So I want to actually set that to false. And that's kind of why I picked this library to show you how to do this, is because it's pretty well documented. That's kind of the important thing out there. The only thing I recommend is, you know, that where we go through and change it from being that crazy format. I actually recommend doing that on the back end so that it's not being done in the render. So when you make the API call, that all happens and all happens once. That's the only thing I recommend changing, but for now this worked. As you can see, this is my stock information here. So in 2017, or in the start of this year, it's here, and then so actually this is backwards. Its stock's actually rising because this is the 2018 and this is 2017. But so that's essentially that's how you can build out a dashboard with stock information. If you like this video, please subscribe. If you have some ideas on videos, don't hesitate to comment them below. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, just put them down in the description below. Subscribe.